Now, global leaders have welcomed the ceasefire between Iran and Israel. And this comes after both sides and US President Donald Trump announced a halt in hostilities. An uneasy calm has now returned to the Middle East, but Trump has appealed to both sides not to violate the ceasefire. Let's discuss this latest development now. And joining us virtually is a senior research fellow and director at Africa-Asia Dialogues, Thembisa Fakude. Thembisa, good to have you with us. Welcome to Morning Live.
Thanks for having me.
So, US President Donald Trump, not a happy man yesterday, it seemed, then accusing both countries, Iran and Israel, of possible ceasefire violations. What's your take on just how things have played out over the past 48 hours?
Well, I think the strikes, at least from the Iranian side, we are told, were agreed upon and launched before the announcement by Donald Trump. Israel retaliated, notwithstanding that they knew that rockets were coming their way. And I think that's what got Donald Trump very upset. And he, in his statement, of course, he had to balance his statement by blaming both parties, but he was visibly angry with Benjamin Netanyahu in Israel for dropping those bombs, which he said he's never seen such large amount of bombs dropped in a country before. So he was visibly upset because President Benjamin Netanyahu wanted to prolong this war. He wanted a protracted war. And Donald Trump stopped him in his tracks in terms of going on Sunday morning and bombing those 3 nuclear facilities in Iran. And when we woke up, we were all told that mission was accomplished.
Thembisa, when you say that Netanyahu would have wanted to draw out this particular war, let's talk to that, because why? To what end would Israel want to prolong this war with Iran, given that it's already in a full-scale war out in Gaza and has been attacking some other countries in the Middle East as well?
Well, one is he wants to continue this genocide in Gaza, so divert attention to Iran, a new target. Number 2 is he wants to continue kicking the can down the road because he knows that when the dust settles, he's likely to face jail time in Israel because of not only the violations that occurred and the blame game that has started, particularly from the Israeli society, that he was sleeping on the job when the events of October the 7th occurred. But he knows that his political career is largely dependent on him staying in power. So he will do whatever it takes to have protracted wars in the region. We know that when he started with this, he said he was intended to suppress the proliferation of nuclear arsenal weapons in Iran. He went on to say he wanted to suppress the military capability of Iran. And the third objective he came up with was that he wanted a regime change. So this was the man who was definitely had all intentions to continue with the war and to drag this as long as he could.
But then, of course, he can only do that, and Israel can only do this with the continued support of the United Nations and other Western allies. So let's speak to that for a moment, given that the NATO summit is currently underway. They've been talking about increased spending there for the NATO signatories. So how is that likely to impact what is going to happen with Israel and the continued support that it enjoys from the West?
Well, Israel has been giving a blank check, but we've seen over the past couple of months more and more countries recognizing the state of Palestine. And at the same time, Israeli, at least Benjamin Netanyahu's relationship with Donald Trump has hit the boat a very serious situation. And now he can't really continue with what he intended to do. So we are in a situation now where Benjamin Netanyahu is isolated. We've seen what Donald Trump has done in the past in terms of continuing to negotiate with the Iranians, continuing to negotiate with Hamas without Benjamin Netanyahu. He also went on to negotiate with the Houthis in Yemen, agreeing that the Houthis were not going to attack the ships or U.S. ships that were going to go on the transporting goods on the Red Sea. But importantly, he went on to shake the hand of Ahmed al-Sharaa, who's the president of Syria. All of this was outside the consent and consensus between the United States or Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu. So Benjamin Netanyahu is likely to be isolated after this, and I think Israel is going to move towards isolating him as well. But I'm not sure whether that will still be the case, given that the war against Iran was very popular within Israel. And Benjamin Netanyahu is now, of course, thinking of calling for a snap election because he understands his popularity at the moment.
And speaking of that, there was, of course, a clear indication given from Benjamin Netanyahu that he and Israel, of course, would like to see regime change in Iran. That, of course, also mentioned by the U.S. president in passing, so to speak, if you will. But is that still one of the main aims for the Israeli government, given that this particular issue regarding the nuclear arsenal is sort of played out now with what Trump has done? Regime change, is that still something that's top of mind for them?
I don't think so. I think it was a very big mistake to even utter those words, because what it meant for the Ayatollah Khamenei and his leadership was the embracing of a zero-sum game tactics. If we're going to be destroyed, we can as well fight to the last end. And that was the biggest mistake that I think Benjamin Netanyahu and others made by saying that they wanted a regime change. We saw Iran bombarding a number of cities in Israel, particularly Haifa and Tel Aviv. And by the way, the pictures that we currently see on Israel do not really show or depict the real extent of the damage that Iran impacted on Israel. Tel Aviv was almost flattened, and I think they understand that. Number two is the life of normal citizens in Israel was extremely disturbed, with many people living under the bunkers. Schools were not operating, flights were suspended, airspace closed. So life was very hard for the Israelis, and I think they realized that this was not sustainable and they could not continue with the war. And it was very expensive. You're talking about very cheap projectiles in the form of drones coming from Iran costing less than $10,000, and the Israelis using millions worth of rockets trying to shoot those down. So they were actually really bankrupting the Israeli army and the Israeli state in general. So this was not going to be sustainable. It was an easy way out for Benjamin Netanyahu, and I think Trump made life easier for Benjamin Netanyahu. But importantly, Trump stopped the war.
And of course, whilst all of this is going on, there's still Gaza. And if we look at the numbers of people killed during this 12-day war, again, more people killed in Gaza than what was happening in this 12-day war. That is, of course, still ongoing. So how long can Benjamin Netanyahu and Israel continue with that offensive before the world actually does something?
Over 800 Gazans were killed during this time, and most of them were queuing for food. And this is the man who is a warmonger who is intent on obliterating Palestinians and killing as much and destroying as much as he can. Over the past 2 years, he has not, at least almost 2 years, he has not been able to achieve his goal in Gaza. So it's a war that is going to continue with, as I've said, because it's part of kicking the can down the road, because he knows that when the dust settles, he's likely to face music inside Israel. So he will do whatever it takes. And we don't see an end on sight, because he has not been able to retrieve at least all the hostages that were taken by both Hamas and Islamic Jihad on October the 7th. So we don't know what's the end game, but I think Trump is going to put pressure on him now, as he did yesterday. He had not very savory words for Benjamin Netanyahu, and I think he's extremely upset and visibly upset, and I think he's going to put pressure now for Benjamin Netanyahu to stop his killing spree in Gaza, because there's nothing else to do there. He has destroyed everything. And hopefully he'll listen to reason, and hopefully the meeting that's taking place at the moment, NATO meeting, is going to also come up with a firm position to stop Benjamin Netanyahu from continuing with this genocide that's televised, and we're all seeing it in real time.
And of course, we'll wait to see what the outcome of that summit is. Thank you so much, Thembisa Fakude, Senior Research Fellow and Director at Africa-Asia Dialogues, speaking to us about the latest developments in the Iran-Israel ceasefire.